Hello everybody, I am the Magician and I am bringing you this matchup in RHoD Season 6. This is going to be round 4 between Seraphim, Rising Storm, and Skye Rangers. Right now the teams are getting the lobbies, so we should start soon. The first map is going to be Tourmaline. It's going to be 2 lights, 3 mediums, 2 heavies, and 1 assault. In this matchup, some things to look for is what kind of lights are these teams taking. Are they taking fire starters? Are they going with a Raven 4X or maybe a 2X? Perhaps they're even trying out some ECM with a Raven 3L or a Kit Fox. With the mediums, you might see either Storm Crows, you could see Wolverines, you could possibly see something like a 2K if the teams really like that slim poke that it gets with the shoulder. You could also very possibly see a Cicada 3M, again if a team wanted to add some ECM, but I expect that we'll mostly be seeing Storm Crows and Wolverines in the medium spots throughout this match. In the heavy slots, we probably will see Timberwolf. We might see a Hellbringer. They could take one Hellbringer, say one Timberwolf. The Hellbringer provides some of that ECM coverage, but you are giving up some tonnage to there and perhaps some damage, especially in the longer range fights that Tourmaline Desert is known for. As for the assaults, well, this one could be a Stalker, perhaps a 4N with the 4 or 6 large lasers, or just any one of the various effective Direwolf configs. For those of you who are new to RHoD or Die, especially for this season, we are running a modified conquest mode where the teams can only capture the center point. They cannot decap their opponent's starting points, and they cannot cap any of the other points. If they happen to capture one of the other ineligible points, except for the starting point, in that case they cannot win on points in the conquest mode, and they will have to destroy all their opponent's mechs before the game times out, otherwise their opponent will win. Tonight I will be doing a solo cast as far as I know, so bear with me with some of the switches between scenes and just getting everything up and running. There's a lot of stuff that I have to manage while also casting, and it has been a while since I've run the camera for spectator mode, so I expect some glitches there as I get used to it. I will try to be in first person as much as possible, but as other casters have noted, it is much easier to actually call the match from third person when you can actually see where everybody is moving. So I will attempt to move between the two, but I'll take any criticism that you have in between the matches. Let me know what you think about the camera, and I'll try to improve it as we go along. This is going to be a best of 5 match, so we could see anywhere from 3 to 5 drops. Some of you are currently having some fun with the Urban Mech tournament that is going on right now. I haven't looked at the standings recently, but I know I saw some familiar names up there like Criven and Twinkie. Good luck to those players as well as every other player who's trying to win that. And as for the people doing the LFG tournament, well, all I can say is have some fun. It's a little bit tough. Their surprizes are okay out there. The main good prize is probably the 500 MC or the Island cockpit item, but to do that you got to do all the various groups and get 30 in each, so that could be a little bit of work just trying to modify your group numbers enough to get that in. Obviously you don't have to use the LFG feature, but I encourage it. I've liked it so far, and I played a few games yesterday on it and ran with some different people that I've never met before, and it put me in some interesting games. So if you haven't used it before, check it out. Personally, I think it's one of the best new additions to MechWarrior Online, because any player now can hop in and be not just sitting there not knowing what to do or anything, or not playing with anybody, especially for community warfare. They can find a group, perhaps play a few matches with them, get to know them, and it's a great way for teams, or for individuals to maybe perhaps even join a team in the future. So any teams out there recruiting, I encourage you to use the LFG feature and try to invite new players to join your team and do some group drops with you. So both teams come in at 1 win and 2 losses. They will be looking to even up their record at 2-2. For RHoD or Die this season, it'll be the top 4 teams who move on to the playoffs, and there are a total of 6 rounds. So at this 4th round, if a team can be 2-2 and perhaps win their next 2 matches and improve to 4-2, they will definitely be competitive for a top 4 spot. It'll be a little bit more difficult, probably pretty difficult, I think, to make the playoffs with 3 losses. But I don't want to say anything at this point because there's a bit of the season still left to be played and a lot of round 4 matches that'll be getting completed, I think, on Sunday. Again, for those just joining, I am waiting for Seraphim and Skye Rangers to start this match. They are both in the lobby, so I'm hoping it'll start in the next few minutes. And this whole match is on a 5-minute delay, so those of you who are trying to follow along or a little confused maybe with some of the breaks there, just know there's going to be a 5-minute delay, and I will do my best to indicate in chat when it'll be 5 minutes until you'll see the drop start. Wonka just told me that the lobby is formed and they will be starting soon. Now, both these teams have been around for a fairly long, I think, in the competitive scene in one form or another, or one league or another. Seraphim has been competing in RHoD and MRBC, and Skye Rangers, I think, you know, they've competed in RHoD or Die, but I'm pretty sure they've also competed in American Civil War. I'm not totally familiar with some of their competitive history, but to get to that first victory came against Isengrim, whereas Rising Storm's first victory was, I'm gonna have to check that. Had it? No, I forgot it. But I think most people out there probably are favoring Seraphim for this match. Nothing against Skye Rangers, but Seraphim has competed in the Division A in MRBC, and they competed fairly well there. So I think that just because of that experience, especially against, they've had a lot more matches against some of the top teams, that should help them carry into this match with a little bit more experience. Okay, so Skye Rangers defeated Isengrim 3-1 to get here. And they lost against Clan Smoke Jaguar and 228 Swamp Foxes. Seraphim, in their first week, they defeated Apocalypse Lancers 3-0, and then they went on to lose the 228 Black Watch 3-0, and then they lost against SJR 3-1. They'll be looking to turn back that losing streak. Hopefully any minute here they'll be starting up. Again, the first match will be on Tourmaline. And we are looking at 2 lights, 3 mediums, 2 heavies, and 1 assault.
Today, you get a little spring in your step at Walmart, where low prices are always in season. Making it easy to get the lawn looking great, change your home air filters, or any of those little things you've been putting off. Walmart has assorted sizes of Filtrete microparticle air filters for just $8.88, and Scott's Turf Builder Weed and Feed, up to 10,000 square feet of coverage for just $19.87. So put the honeydews in the rear view mirror and focus on the wanna-dos. Take on your spring projects today. Save money. Live better. Walmart.
Okay, so we're gonna have a slight delay here. It looks like Sky Rangers has to make a couple changes to their drop deck. They were a little heavier than they could have been. So that'll just be a few minutes here as they rework something. They probably had one of the classes messed up. No big deal, shouldn't take them very long. Better that they caught it before they started. In good news, I saw that they are reworking River City. Now, this is a map that was introduced, I think it might have been the third map overall introduced, maybe third or fourth map. And it was one of those maps when it was 8v8 and they were talking about 12v12 that we were a bit worried about being too small. And a couple years later, they now have, I think, the time and resources, and the game's developed further along, that they're able to start working on some of these older maps and tweaking them to be a little bit better fit, I think, for 12v12. I'm hoping that they increase some of the, I mean, they're going to increase the size, but I'm hoping that when they do that, that they address some of the problems that map had, especially in the assault mode. Some of the range issues, a bigger size, it should probably address the range issues, but we'll just have to see how much it actually fixes them. Especially with how some of the drop zones, at least on certain sides, or rather certain game types, that one side has advantage. That's the side that started up top with the drop ship. Definitely, I think, had an advantage over the lower team. So when they reworking maps, I mean, look, Counter-Strike Go's been around for, well, Counter-Strike's been around for eons, and they just released a new version of Train. So it's nothing out of the ordinary, we'll say that way, with games reforming maps, reworking them, trying to make them improved, and hopefully this just fixes some of the issues and we'll have a more competitive map. It is possible that if this map has, we'll just have to pay attention as we get closer to playoffs in case this map has some issues. If they rework it, release it, then we might have to swap in a new map. But I'm looking forward to that map getting redone. They've talked about some other maps also maybe getting reworked. Perhaps Forest Colony, which I'm kind of curious, because that is the first map that's ever released. And I think Forest Colony actually works okay for 12v12. It is a smaller map, but that isn't bad to have maybe a few smaller maps. I don't know. I'm interested to see what they come up with on that one too when they start working on that. Oh, we're still waiting here for Sky Rangers, I think, to ready up. So, don't really have an ETA for you, but I'm hopeful it'll be the next 3 minutes. Actually, it does look like they dropped. Sure, yep, looks like they dropped. Alright, so here we go. Sky Rangers versus Seraphim. Drop number 1 in this round 4 matchup. I was not informed which side the team start on, so I'm going to take the time when this match first starts to get myself oriented. Looks like the blue team is going to be, that should be Seraphim. And the red team is going to be Sky Rangers. Alrighty, we get some fire across the way where those 2 lances start. But the interesting part is not so much this early exchange, but what happens after this exchange. What is the rest of the Sky Rangers mechs going to go? And it does look like they're moving over to D4. And you see Wonka is shutting down in the open. He could have taken some serious damage in this direwolf. He has opted for the 2 large poles for medium 2 Gauss direwolf, which is a good mech. It doesn't quite have the range as maybe a triple Gauss. And it is a bit hot, especially on Tourmaline. He won't be able to make much use of those medium lasers at this range. And you do see that Sky Rangers over there has a Raven 2X, Wolverines, Direwolves, Timberwolves, and we'll try to get a better look at some of these mechs as we go forward. Well, scoreboard still has some bugs here, but we see 2 Storm Crows for Seraphim, a Direwolf, a Timberwolf, and a Firestarter. I'm going to scroll through some mechs and see what we see. Wonka once again shutting down. He's really got to be a little more careful about that in the open, because if Sky Ranger is a little more focused and saw that, they could easily team up on him and blow him up. I see we're at 3 large laser, Raven 2X. And that right now we are looking through Sky Ranger's mechs. Another 3 large lasers, Raven 2X. And they went a 5 medium Gauss Timberwolf. Now that when you take a 5 medium Gauss Timberwolf, you are looking for a little bit closer of an encounter than this. They do manage to get the first kill though against Cypher 42. Well, these colors are messed up, so I have to be careful there. Yeah, Seraphim got the first kill against Sky Rangers. So 5 medium lasers Gauss, you might want to be looking at those 405 meters. You're probably looking within 600 meters for those mediums before you really want to be using too much heat on those. He hasn't taken very much damage yet. Yeah, 4 large lasers, 6K, a very solid mech there. Remember, there are no strikes in RHoD this season. Another 6K with an open left torso. Machagob is going to have to be a little bit careful there. And you see him not quite on the slope. But now Sky Rangers has noticed something here that is an F4. And they are pushing on this Firestarter here. And they're leaving that area that they had held. This could be good if they can maybe pick apart this light. Perhaps get even up the score 1-1. But they are switching their position. And it is Seraphim who can take an active move here and try to get on their back. So let's take a look at what Seraphim is doing. They have moved a little bit up to the D4 side. The Direwolves are lagging behind, of course, only going about 58 kph. But now they are going to try to put some pressure here. But already Sky Rangers has switched on the other side of the hoop. So they probably didn't get too much done here. But looking at the percentages, you got a 41% and a 50%, 6K. That is pretty beat up. A 70% Timberwolf, another 70%, 6K. That Timberwolf is really fresh. He's going to have to rotate to the front, try to do a little bit more damage. It's difficult to tell exactly what mech went down so far for Sky Rangers, but just looking across here, it looks like one of their assaults dropped. As Sky Rangers are moving, or Seraphim is moving in, let's move into Wonka here in the Direwolf. Actually, let's get into Vorpal's sword. He is leading the charge, and he did get that first kill. Two mechs are dead now for Sky Rangers.
New target acquired.
And they're being heavily pressured by Seraphim, who has moved up, and they've gotten another kill to go up, and another kill, and they are up 4-0. There's only 4 mechs left on Sky Rangers team, and no mechs are down for Seraphim. Okay, now just 3 mechs to go, and it looks like it's just a Raven 2X. I believe maybe one of the other lights, and I'm trying to see what a Wolverine as well. But they take down Gray Fox, and now just 2 mechs left for Seraphim to try to clean this match up. Going for the legs on the 2X, or the right torso is a one-shot, or the rear torso, and then he takes Matt Defects down, and Seraphim does take this first drop. Should be able to take a look at the scoreboard, see some overall damages that went on. Very well spread out, I think, for Seraphim. Unfortunately, we can't exactly see these mechs. I hope that issue gets fixed soon. I don't know what Cypher 42 was in, but I'm assuming he was in an assault. I think Cards might have been in the other assault, just because I don't remember seeing him later on in the drop, and that means they did not be able to get very much damage done, whereas you see Seraphim throughout their team was doing good damage. Wonka with 386, the high, and Timberwolf C with 492, and Merc managed 438. And like I said, I don't know what kind of mech he was in. Well done to Seraphim in taking the first drop. Okay, so what we saw is that Seraphim started on the red team and they moved over towards D5, whereas Skye Rangers started on the blue team and they started in this E4 area and I think this G4 lance, and they moved here and they first set up in E4 and were trading here. But as we can tell, some of those mechs, like 5 medium Gauss, they did not have necessarily as much range as I think the Seraphim had. At least the Seraphim had it might have been pretty close when you combine the 4 large laser Wolverines versus the pulse medium Crows. At some point here during this trade, Skye Rangers lost at least one of their assaults. I'm not sure, they might have lost a second there when I was switching around, but Skye Rangers then noticed that there was a single light, at least a single light, it might have been 2, over in this F4 area for Seraphim. So Skye Rangers then decided to move out, and they came back over towards this F4 and then F behind the hoop and F5. Skye Rangers, noticing this movement, did not just stay static. Instead, their dire wolves started moving up. And they were being the slow draggers, but that's just how it was going to be. And their faster mechs got to E4 pretty quick. They got some shots on there before Seraphim managed to before Skye Rangers managed to get behind F5, but then Seraphim did not get off on this attack. They continued to move up and they put the pressure. They knew they were up 2 or 3 mechs at this point, and they just wanted to apply the damage, not offer Skye Rangers an opportunity to cool down. So they were able to keep up the attack and ended up bringing them down with a pretty firm victory. So looking ahead, Alpine Peaks is the next drop. There'll be 3 lights, 3 mediums, and 2 assaults. As for those lights, well, the 2Xs, we saw teams using that in the last drop, and that is an option here, as well as the Raven 3L or the Raven 4X, or they could go with the Clan Light and maybe even do something like a 2 ER large Kit Fox. You don't see those very often, but yeah, it is something that they could try to play with. Otherwise, fire starters, also being that this is the conquest mode, they might try to use the fire starters to apply a little more pressure on the cap. If you control the cap, sometimes you can control a little bit what the other team does. If you have up on points, that means that they got to try to retake it. And when they do that, maybe they have to move out of a good position into a poor position. As for the mediums, lots of options there. Well, maybe I'm overstating lots of options. Same options basically as Tourmaline. You're looking pretty much at your Storm Crows or Wolverines in that spot, but the builds could be various. You could try a more aggressive strat with large pulse and mediums on the Crows. You could try from ER large, which has a longer sustained of a shot, but it does have that extended range. So if you can try to keep at that range, you'd have an advantage over a team who went with the large pulse and mediums. As for the Wolverines, you could go for 3 or 4 large lasers or ER large, depending on what you feel more comfortable with. Large lasers do have the better quirks, but with the ER large in the Wolverine, it has very similar range as clan ER large lasers, but a shorter duration. And as for the assaults, there's some interesting options there as well. The direwolves, again, are very strong, as well as the stalkers, perhaps even switching ER large on the stalkers. I've seen some teams go with the 5 ER large setup. For those just joining us, we have finished one drop, which Seraphim took on Tourmaline, and we are now waiting for the teams to get ready for Alpine Peaks. So on Alpine Peaks, this one can be a little tricky on Conquest. You can start up any of these DZs for the red team, and then the blue team has theirs spaced all the way to J11, and they got the L9 one and this L6, L7 one. But this is where it gets a little tricky. The blue team has the option of coming up here and posting on this side. Now theta is the point that can be captured, so they could have some direct shots towards there and try to control the higher point here. Whereas the red team could either choose to also defend this spot, or even from this lance, or they could try perhaps to defend from the H6, I6, I5 with these two spawns. We also could see the blue team, instead of going the I10 route, they could come up over maybe to J7, J6, perhaps even spreading out towards the Sigma J5 spot. And it's a little bit, it is lower than the I6, I7, so you have some problems there, but I6 is really flat up top. And when hills are flat up top, that means you have to expose almost your entire mech to get shots on any lower position. So if you sit low and you feel comfortable in this J8, perhaps I8 position, then you might want to stay on this, you might want to go this direct route this way, as opposed to going around this way. I think Alpine Peaks, with this Conquest mode, is a good map. I feel like on Skirmish, the map has tons of problems, but I feel like with the Central Point, or even in general Conquest, that Alpine Peaks is a really good map to play on. One thing about Alpine Peaks is that with the range, the extended range, and especially because it's a cooler map, you'll see some different tactics than you would see on almost any other map. And anytime you can make teams have to adjust to new tactics, to have to at least explore or show off all their own diversity, their own range of ability. Personally, I think that's a good thing, and I think that leads to exciting matches. I think it'd become a little stale if every match played out like Forest Colony. So I'm glad, I'm fully for moving away from Skirmish and Alpine Peaks. Way too many problems there. But I think on any other mode, especially on Conquest, I think Alpine Peaks can shine as a good example of as a good type of a map that leads to interesting and competitive matches. I don't want to say it's a good map, because I have tons of problems with Alpine Peaks as a map. I think there's so much that can be done to improve it, like developing tunnels underneath the big mountain in I-9, adding new paths, adding some kind of things that just make it a little less one-sided, especially competitively in Skirmish. But that being said, I feel like with objective-based play, which you have in Conquest, some of these maps that are otherwise biased, like Alpine Peaks, actually can just become a bit more competitive and leads to like I said, leads to interesting matches. We've seen some really good matches in the 4v4s where teams have done widely different tactics and widely different positions. But it's much better than in the old stale days of Alpine Peaks and Skirmish, which happened in RHoD. It also happened infamously in MRBC, where teams played 3 or 4 times before they had to change the draw rules on that map without any result. And, oh, geez, they dropped the next match. See, I'm talking, and I didn't get a message. See, hopefully I'm not too late on this thing. One of the problems about casting alone, you don't really get to check everything at once. All right, I think we're still in the early part. You see 96%. Let's just look overhead to see what kind of mechs we're seeing. We are seeing 4 Skye Rangers. They went with Stormcrows, Stalker 4N, Raven 2Xs. There's now Stalker 4Ns are probably ER large. We went to 4Xs on Seraphim, and the 4Xs do have the extra 30% range. That'll be good. They went with a Stalker 4N as well. So on the assault side, they are seemingly, they are equal with the Stalkers. Now, the Stormcrows, I'm interested in what kind of mechs they took. They took a few different kinds of Stormcrows. Perhaps they may even went with a Street Stormcrow to deal with lights. But right now, they are exchanging this extreme range damage here. Those are the hills I was talking about, where that lower team could just push into these J7 hills, and the other team could set up an H6. But let's get into the actual view of some of these mechs and figure out what these guys are taking. Alright, so we got 2 ER large, 4 medium on the Stormcrow for Seraphim. And I'm just going to flash through. Oh, they're getting some good damage on Neutrino there in the open. He is crossing way out there, and that's the thing about ER large. Just one more shot in his leg, and he does go down. So Seraphim takes an early 1-0 lead, and you see that other Raven 2Xs, Dan the Maytag man, is already at 73%, giving Seraphim, I think, a pretty good controlling advantage, because without that light, that really reduces Skye Ranger's chance to actually go after Theta. And with Seraphim already holding Theta, they really hold the momentum on this map in this drop. Alright, Dan Maytag man, he's really got to be careful there with that left leg. It's opened, and the right leg is damaged as well. But he is pretty close to Charlie, and he's trying to get some shots on there. But he has to be really careful. If he exposes that leg, Matt Edge might be able to rip that right off. Matt Edge has a very good aim, and he does take out the right torso down. Dan now has protected his right torso and his left leg. Metafox is one of the other lights there, and he's going to just a standard 3 large laser here, 2X. As we move here, Matricob, 2 large, 3 medium, pretty similar to the Seraphim mech. And this Stormcrow of card 79 with 4 ER large has an open CT. He's going to have to be a little more careful, rotate to the back. But with that ER large, it is a hot mech. But, in this type of engagement, a longer term, he could do really well. But having that early damage is really going to push him back and limit his effectiveness. Alright, so Grey Fox went with a 6 large laser Stalker. I'm surprised. I know the quirks are for large lasers, but on this map with that range and with the rest of your team, I'm surprised he didn't go with ER large. And he also went with 6 larges. So both of the Skye Ranger Stalkers went 6 large lasers. They're going to move close. I need to see exactly what Seraphim is going with their Stalkers. I'm hoping Wonka's in one, so I can easily switch to this. He went with ER large. We see a significant advantage in range right now for Seraphim. They just need to maintain the max effective range of their weapons, and they will control this fight. They are already up on 1 kill. And they hold the cap point, and they've held it for probably about 3 or 4 minutes now. We did join this match fairly late, before most of the engagement started, luckily. And you see that the Skye Rangers Stalkers already lost 3 of his large lasers, and now card 79 does go down. That was that Stormcrow with the 4 ER large. They have lost a bit of their extended range mech. And that Raven Metafox, I think he's got leg there, so he should go down here if they can just... he does seem to get behind the hill, but maybe Wonka can spread out. But Verbal Sword does take down Dan the Maytag man, and now Seraphim is up 3-0. And there you see Matt Edge going with the 2 ER large 4X, and look at that, 945 meters. That is absolutely sick for a light. And this has a nice high mount, can peek over these hills really well. And you see him there trading against the Stormcrow. Stormcrow has almost no chance against this mech. He doesn't have the range or anything. And Matt Edge takes down Master Flash to bring Seraphim up 3-0.
Acquired.
Oh my gosh, I am behind. It is 4-0 now. And you see this other one. Merc is probably the most damage on this team. Elo 7 as well as Elo 7 there, but it's just those. I think it's just those Ravens. I'm gonna zoom out here. Look at the overall damages, but you do see that Seraphim is starting to get a little more aggressive. They push up towards Sigma side, trying to get on Golf Stalker, and I think this mech will go down here. Yes, he does. And the rest of the Seraphim mechs have pushed down to K6 to finish this matchup. And this will be the end here as Mither goes down and Seraphim does go up 2-0 in this match, and dominant style really on this drop. They had the range mechs. They had I think a little bit better position, but really that range was key. And I also they took the base early. They had that, even though they had the 4Xs, they were able to take that base early. And then they were able to hold that with the extended range weapons, and they were able to win this drop 8-0. Matt Edge 492, well done in the Raven 4X, making full use of those awesome ER large lasers. Vorpal Sword also with 424, and you see like the 2Xs not able to get Neutrino, who was taken down first, not able to really get into this fight. I mean, he had no chance, honestly. He was shooting large lasers way outside of comparison with the ER large lasers range. He would have to wait to the very end of the match, but he got caught trying to switch in the open, and with all that ER large, Clan ER large, and that extended IS ER large laser damage out there, it easily legged the mech and took it down. So, well played by Seraphim. Okay, let's look at this map just briefly. We missed the beginning part, so I'm not going to spend too much time in here because, like I said, I can't keep up with exactly what's going on any other screen when I'm doing this. So anybody wants to buy me a monitor, I will love you forever, so I can have another one. But it appears that this was Skye Ranger's position, and they went... No, I'm going to get this all messed up here. This would be Seraphim's position, and they went into this... Oh man, now I feel really confused. Because not seeing that early fight, it's a little bit confusing for me here. But we saw that we talked about the J7, J6, and that's what the one team set up as. And that one light got caught over in I7, was legged, trying to cross in here. And that pretty much, in my opinion, that set up the result. Yeah, so Seraphim was down here in the J7, J6. We saw the Stalkers. I think the Stalkers might have gone J7, they might have been J6, but it doesn't really matter too much. But they were able to use this range very well, and there was some rotation going on a little bit in this fight, but in the end, the Seraphim was able to just hold this general area. They were able to basically control, really with this range, honestly, they controlled all this. This is all Seraphim's area. The only chance I think the Skye Rangers would have had at this point would be to have pushed up I6, dropped over this hill. Because once they dropped over this hill, they would have cut down the range significantly. If they could have done that, maybe they could have gotten within their range. Because even though they had some of those ER large crows and the 4 ER large crow, you have to be aware of all your mechs and how all your mechs are able to trade. And if some of your mechs can trade, some can't, but all of your opponents can, guess what? You're going to lose 9 out of 10 times. So in order to get all their mechs involved, including their Stalkers, they really had to be a little bit more aggressive and push in as close as they possibly could. Like I said, man, I called that match late. I honestly, skipping a little bit some of the early movements, didn't get to see them. But we do know that Seraphim took Theta, went up on points, and used their extended large laser range and was able to really control that fight. So, again, well done to Seraphim, and we'll be moving on hopefully soon into Drop 3. Now, Drop 3 is going to be on Mining Collective. 550 tons. This is the first tonnage drop that we're having in this match, which means that there's a max of 550, and the minimum, they can go a little bit under that if teams want to, but most teams are going to be sitting there between 540 and 550, depending on what kind of drop deck they want to go with. I'm going to be checking here to make sure that I don't miss something on when they are going to drop. All right, so 550 tons between 8 people. There's lots of different drop decks that you can do. You could load up on Timberwolves and then maybe take a Hellbringer and a Light. You could go with some Dire Wolves, mix in some Timberwolves, maybe a Crow, a couple Lights. Overall, it's a fairly heavy drop. You're going to see maybe 1 or 2 Lights, I think, at most, unless the team really feels comfortable in the Dire Wolves and feels like they can control the fight in the Dire Wolves, and they might decide to go with a top heavy drop mixed in with Lights. The average tonnage per mech is about 69 tons, so obviously that is in the heavy range. You won't see, I don't think, something like four Summoners and 4 Hellbringers. I don't think you'll see anything like that, though you probably can make that work. Most teams are really, the Timberwolf is known as probably being the best overall mech in the game, maybe tied with the Dire Wolf, but with the high speed of the Timberwolf, I think most people would probably give the edge as the best mech in the game to the Timberwolf. There was some recent patches which addressed some of the jump jetting issues that was causing your ability to increase the ability of a person to spread damage across their mech with that huge bob. Personally, I haven't really noticed. I'm sure the animation has changed, but I haven't really felt like my time to die has increased all that much with the mech. It's still just very good at shedding damage and spreading it all around, as well as dishing it out. I mean, the mech is really heat efficient. Lots of configs you can go with it. So you can go with PPC Gauss, mediums Gauss, large pulse Gauss. I'm going to miss things. Mediums SRMs. You could go Gauss SRMs, LBX20 SRMs. There's so many different configs you can go with the Timberwolf. So just because you see somebody on Timberwolf doesn't mean you have any idea until you see at least a little more details on the mech, maybe pick out what weapons are on there, or you get the target ID information up to have a really good idea of exactly what they're bringing, what they're planning to do. So when you mix Timberwolves in with the Hellbringer and give that ECM coverage, you could surprise a team. If maybe a team expects you to sit back with large pulse, medium, lasers, which I didn't say, and they could use, maybe you're expecting them to sit back with that, but perhaps with the ECM coverage and you don't quite pick out their SRMs, you end up being a little over aggressive against that team, and suddenly they show up with mediums and SRMs, which is with those SRMs, as long as they're registering well, it can be a really high DPS weapon, and it can cause a lot of problems if you are, say, pushing in with maybe a little more range deck against, perhaps you saw that your opponent's in a weaker position, so you wanted to push in even though you're range, and suddenly you get surprised. That is one of the advantages of bringing Hellbringer. The other advantage is it can just load up tons of double heat sinks and run 6 medium lasers. Super cool. And I have seen consistently where Hellbringer is the top scoring mech in the game. It is vulnerable with the left torso, but as we saw with the Thunderbolt 9S, it doesn't care if it all has all its weapons in one torso if you can't destroy the damn thing in time. And if it can poke very well and very quick, it is a quick mech. And with the ECM, it also adds a little extra stealth on those pokes. And it has been, I think the Hellbringer has been a game changer in a lot of ways. So I'm hoping to see some of those there. Lights on this one, teams might still go with the 2X or 4X depending on their style, but I think you're more likely to see the Firestarter 9S or Firestarter 9A on this. 9A is going to be the small pulse, 9S is going to be the medium pulse. Alright, they're still in lobby. I'm just going to watch this mech screen until I see them launch. I don't want to be behind on this one. If you have any questions, please put it in chat, comments. Appreciate them. And for those of you just joining us, we are watching Seraphim versus Skye Rangers. Seraphim has taken the first 2 maps. They won the first one on Tourmaline. And they won the next one just recently on Alpine Peaks, where they won that one 8-0. But both maps, I would say they won in a very convincing fashion. They got their early kills and they followed them up, being aggressive, not giving Skye Rangers a chance to try to poke for extended periods of time under cool conditions. They said, you're going to have to fight in the heavy fight, and if you can't deal with that, then you're going to go down. And Seraphim just applied that pressure and was able to drop them pretty quickly, actually, on those pushes. Once they got in there, they just dropped those mechs, and that is one of those things that Seraphim has done really well over time. I think they are one of the best teams, honestly, at Focus Fire in this game. If you stick a mech out there and you're not careful, that team will zero in on that mech very well. I think a lot of other teams play a little more individual style where they're trying to get in what's going on. But Seraphim, at least Wonka, calls it out, says, target Charlie. Those guys will drop whatever else they are doing and get down. Seraphim also is a very good legging team. They go after legs, and that is something that when you have that focus fire down, if you can leg a mech and just leave it out there in the middle, now you can just easily kill it. Whereas say you try to go CT and you're fighting a person who is very good at shedding the damage, spreading it all around, it could take you a lot longer to drop it. There are some problems going with legs, in that perhaps their person hides behind a hill suddenly and you've opened up their legs, but now you can't even get access to their legs. But yeah, I think that is one of Seraphim's big advantages, and reason they've had so much success is that they have very good teamwork and very good focus fire. And yeah, I think the legs really does help out against that team. I think they, in my opinion, the game was starting to shift away from legs. We started getting back to CTs. Like, the game has bounced back around depending on what mechs were popular. Like with Dragon Slayers, it was a little more CT, side torso. At times, it was a little more legs. But at a certain point, I felt like Seraphim started bringing back a little more of that leg attack. And I think they had a big influence on other teams doing a bit more focus on legs. Currently, though, with the dire wolves, especially when you have a lot more dire wolves, I think we're seeing a bit more returning to just CT, straight up CT fighting. Okay, they have dropped. This is going to be on Mining Collective, 550 tons. I see some Timberwolf C's being brought out by Seraphim. C's are very popular because of the center torso laser. Also, you could probably go with the Prime, but the S you don't necessarily want to take because I want to get in right away on. Let's get on Neutrino and that Scrumcrow. See if that is their plan with the rest of their mechs. Yeah, so they have chosen to go with the SRM Brawl. Now, Theta is the point that can be captured in the center, but it is a difficult point to hold once you're there. So these teams, a lot of teams are fighting on the perimeter and then attacking Theta throughout the match to try to get a little bit of advantage on the points, but not necessarily committing all their mechs. And we do see some trading early on C3, but they've caught a couple lights in C3, but are they going to follow this up? Seraphim has, courting out Neutrino right away. They posted their Timberwolves up on C3, doing devastating damage to him. Dan, the Maytag man, his rear torso already cored out on this Hugin. He's all the way in this fight. Seraphim has a lot of shots here, and we are still waiting, I think, for some of these mechs. 2-0 already in favor of Seraphim there. Gray Fox, he's not even in this fight in the Dire Wolf, and he's already lost 2 mechs on his team. As well as Cypher. They're not even in this fight, but the full-on fight, you have all pretty much of Seraphim's mechs are in on this fight against Skye Rangers. This is a huge advantage of this situation, and you see Master Flash quickly in one little trade there going red CT. And the Firestarter S is there for Seraphim. Much better, I think, in overall trading ability. And Master Flash goes down. He's cored, and then he's dead. Alright, well, let's select for a little bit for Seraphim. He opted for the 2 large pulse, 3 medium laser. And Gray Fox actually goes down in that Dire Wolf. He didn't get to see that. Matt Edge took him out. Matt Edge just plays the lights. I'm wondering if he didn't sneak behind him there, or if he just became the focus there, as you see the other direwolf there, and they maybe finally arrived in the battle, and Seraphim was able to take him out. Hotel is almost out in this direwolf, and it is the last mech alive. Neutrino, who we saw was cored earlier, absolutely crushing fight here.
Fuel at 25%. Target destroyed.
And a clean, very clean victory. I'm just cycling through, and 65, 51%. Yeah, it's the lowest that I see for Seraphim. That is a very dominating win. Well played by Seraphim. They are going to take this match 3-0. Overall in the damage, I mean, you just see the numbers. You don't even have to add them up. Seraphim absolutely putting out the damage with all their mechs, all of them over 200 damage. The Firestarter. So how mad it was in a Timberwolf in this drop. Okay, so they went with that setup I talked about with 6 Timberwolves, 1 Hellbringer, 1 Light. Whereas we see that Sky Rangers went with the 2 Direwolves, 3 Timberwolves, 1 Stormcrow, and the Hugins. Hugins really not able to end up putting up much damage. They are very high DPS light, but you need to have the time alive. If you're not alive long enough to put out that damage, then you're not going to put out very much in 2 SRM4s or whatever you're taking in a couple of trades. So they need to have that sustained alive. I'm not sure why they felt like pushing all that Lance up there without their Direwolves involved. Their Direwolves did get some damage there at the end, about 440 damage total, a little bit under that, but that's not enough. It's not enough, especially, like I said, their 2 mechs were already dead before those Direwolves were ever engaged. When you're playing with those heavier mechs, really want to try to time your attack and have everybody together, have the Direwolves being able to be fully engaged, if not immediately, right after. Sometimes you'll delay their attack. By delaying their attack, you may focus on, say, a Timberwolf, like we talked about, that they can spread the damage fairly well. So they're focusing on your Timberwolves, and now the Direwolves come in and punch holes. That is one way to do that attack, but just leaving those Direwolves that far behind on a slow push did not work at all for Sky Rangers. And Seraphim charging up, taking that C3 spot. They had some of those mechs high up on the pillars there, had a very good control over that fight, and they were getting pretty much their entire team right away involved. So congratulations to Seraphim Rising Storm. They will improve to 2-2, and Sky Rangers will fall to 1-3. We should see the matchups for round 5 and there'll be 6 total rounds, but the round 5 matchups will mostly come out. I say mostly come out Sunday night, Monday morning. We will have a delay as CSJX and Imperial got an extension to Tuesday, which won't upset any of the other leagues. Won't upset either the 4v4 leagues at all. It'll only delay a little bit the 8v8, and even then it won't add any significant delays, as most of the matches will be out there on the schedule, and we'll just be waiting for that match to finish on Tuesday to get the final 2 other matches listed. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm not even going to go any further on these matches. If you have any questions, I'll remain on chat for a little while. Feel free to ask anything, and I look forward to casting the next match. Thanks all.